All right. So I went to do a philosophy vlog. So this is gonna be my first video. First work is Sophist, by Plato. So I'm gonna read through it and just say a few things about some of the ideas they, you know, express here. So persons of dialogue, Theodorus, Theaetetus, Socrates, an Iliadic stranger. Well, I'm just kind of gonna go through this real quickly, so it really doesn't matter. You could read the work in its totality, on your own and things of that sort. Basically, was it Theaetetus will be speaking with the stranger. We'll see what they talk about here. So it says here, Theodorus, here we are, Socrates, true to our agreement of yesterday, and we bring with us a stranger from Ilia, who is a disciple of Parmenides and Zeno, and a true philosopher. Socrates, is he not rather a god, Theodorus, who comes to us in the disguise of a stranger? For Homer says that all the gods, and especially the god of strangers, are companions of the meek and just, and visit the good and evil among men. And may not your companion be one of those higher powers, a cross-examining deity who has come to spy out our weakness in arguments and to cross-examine us? Theodorus, nay, Socrates, he is not one of the disputatious sort. He is too good for that, and in my opinion, he is not a god at all, but divine he certainly is, for this is a title which I should give to all philosophers. Socrates, capital, my friend, and I may add that they are almost as hard to be discerned as the gods, for the true philosophers and such are not merely made up for the occasion, appear in various forms, unrecognized by the ignorance of men, and they hover above cities, as Homer declares, looking from above upon human life, and some think nothing of them, and others can never think enough. And sometimes they appear as statesmen, and sometimes as sophists, and then again, to many, they seem to be no better than madmen. I should like to ask our Eleatic friend if he would tell us what his thoughts about them in Italy, and to whom the terms are applied. Theodorus, what terms? Socrates, sophist, statesman, philosopher. Theodorus, what is your difficulty about them, and what made you ask? Socrates, I want to know whether by this countrymen they are regarded as one or two, or do they, as the names are three, distinguish also three kinds, and assign one to each name? Here, a sophist, a statesman, a philosopher. When you think about like a human being, a human could be each of those things. It could be each of those things at different times, the same person, or at the same person could be each of those things at the same time, a sophist, a statesman, and a philosopher. Definitely a statesman and a philosopher. I don't know how much mixing a sophist with the other two, that depends on how you define sophist, I suppose. Although that's that's more like a philosophy trick, just saying, oh, it depends how you define it, and I'm not gonna define it here. What is Theodorus, what is your difficulty about them, and what made you ask? Socrates, right? I, Theodorus, I dare say that the stranger will not object to discuss the question. What do you say, stranger? Stranger, I am far from objecting, Theodorus, nor have I any difficulty in replying that by us they are regarded as three, but to define precisely the nature of each of them is by no means a slight or easy task. Theodorus, you have happened to light. Uh, you have happened to light, Socrates, almost on the very question which we were asking our friend before we came hither, and he excused himself to us, as does now, as he does now to you, although he admitted that the matter had been fully discussed and that he remembered the answer. Socrates, then do not, stranger, deny us the first favor which we ask of you. I am sure that you will not, and therefore I shall only beg of you to say whether you like and are accustomed to make a long oration on a subject which you want to explain to another, or to proceed by the method of question and answer. I remember hearing a very noble discussion in which Parmenides employed the latter of the two methods when I was a young man, and he was far advanced in years. Stranger, I prefer to talk with another when he responds pleasantly and is light in hand. If not, I would rather have my own say. Socrates, anyone of the present company will respond kindly to you, and you can choose whom you like of them. I should recommend you to take a young person, Theotetus, for example, unless you have a preference for someone else. Stranger, I feel ashamed, Socrates, being a newcomer into your society, instead of talking a little and hearing others talk, to be spinning out a long soliloquy or address as if I wanted to show off. For the true answer will certainly be a very long one, a great deal longer than might be expected from such a short and simple question. At the same time, I fear that I may seem rude and ungracious if I refuse your courteous request, especially after what you have said. For I certainly cannot object to your proposal that Theotetus should respond, having already conversed with him myself, and being recommended by you to take him. Theotetus, but are you sure, stranger, that this will be quite so acceptable to the rest of the company as Socrates imagines? Stranger, you hear them applauding, Theotetus. After that, there is nothing more to be said. Well then, I am to argue with you, and if you tire of the arguments, you may complain of your friends and not of me. Theotetus, I do not think that I shall tire, and if I do, I shall get my friend here, young Socrates, the namesake of the elder Socrates, to help. He is about my own age, and my partner at the gymnasium, and is constantly accustomed to work with me. Stranger, very good. You can decide about that for yourself as we proceed. Meanwhile, you and I will begin together and inquire into the nature of the Sophist. First of the three, I should like you to make out what he is and bring him to light in a discussion. For at present we are only agreed about the name, but of the thing to which we both apply the name possibly you have one notion and I another, whereas we ought always to come to an understanding about the thing itself in terms of definition, and not merely about the name minus the definition. Now, the tribe of Sophists which we are investigating is not easily caught or defined, and the word has long ago agreed that if The world has long ago agreed that if great subjects are to be adequately treated, they must be studied in the lesser and easier instances of them before we proceed to the greatest of all. As I know that the tribes of Sophists is troublesome and hard to be caught, I should recommend that we practice beforehand the method which is to be applied to him on some simple and smaller thing, unless you can suggest a better way. Indeed, I cannot. Theoditus. Stranger, then suppose that we work out some lesser example, which will be a pattern of the greater. Theotetus, good. Stranger, what is it? What is there which is well known and not great, and is yet as acceptable of definition as any larger thing? Shall I say an angler? He is familiar to all of us, and not a very interesting or important person. He is not, Theotetus. Stranger, yet I suspect that he will furnish us with the sort of definition and line of inquiry which we want. Theotetus, very good. Stranger, let us begin by asking whether he is a man having art or not having art, but some other power. Theotetus, he is clearly a man of arts. Stranger, and of arts there are two kinds. Theotetus, what are they? Stranger, there is agriculture and the tending of mortal creatures, and the art of constructing or molding vessels, and there is the art of imitation. All these may appropriately be called by a single name. Theotetus, what do you mean, and what is the name? Stranger, he who brings into existence something that did not exist before is said to be a producer, and that which is brought into existence is said to be produced. Theotetus, true. Stranger, and all the arts which were just now mentioned are characterized by this power of producing. Theotetus, they are. Stranger, then let us sum them up under the name of productive or creative art. Theotetus, very good. Yeah, so yeah, so that or is inclusive or between productive and creative arts, and that's gonna make a few issues. Let's read a little bit more and then come back to it. So Theotetus, very good. Stranger, next follows the whole class of learning and cognition. Then comes trade, fighting, hunting, and since none of these produces anything, but is only engaged in conquering by word or deed, or in preventing others from conquering, things which exist and have been already produced, in each and all of these branches, there appears to be an art which may be called acquisitive. Theotetus, yes, that is the proper name. Stranger, seeing then that all arts are either acquisitive or creative, in which class shall we place the art of the angler? Clearly in the acquisitive class. Stranger, and the acquisitive may be subdivided into two parts. There is exchange, which is voluntary and is effected by gifts, hire, purchase, and the other part of acquisitive, which takes by force of word or deed, may be termed conquest. Theotetus, that is implied in what has been said. Yeah, so these it's kind of difficult to say that the classes that he's mentioned here of learning and cognition are not productive or creative arts. I mean, with fighting, there are different styles of fighting. fighting in itself produces, well, not produces, but depending on the reasons for fights, uh, if you want to consider human relationships, uh, to be products of some kind, you can say fighting does produce certain kinds of relationships between individuals, between animals. Uh, Animals fights for various reasons, and uh, yeah, that's it creates a kind of relationship. It creates certain outcomes. Um, Same thing with trade. Um, People have different ways of doing trade, and uh, it could be considered a kind of creative art in as far as um, individual ways of doing business is concerned. Uh, and the same thing with hunting. People have different styles of hunting, different ways of hunting. Um, you can have a good hunter and a bad hunter, and um, it it's a technique that they use, but it's also something that is something each individual has to kind of make their own, and uh, uh, kind of add on to the things that they discover, and use in ways that are that are that have to do with their environments and their particular situations. Um, so yeah, the name he gives is a little bit deceptive. Um, but we could continue. Okay, so stranger, and may not conquest be again subdivided? How stranger, how theotesis, stranger, open force may be called fighting, and secret force may have the general name of hunting. Theotesis, yes, stranger, and there is no reason why the art of hunting should not be further divided. Theotesis, how would you make the division, stranger, into the hunting of living and of lifeless prey? Theotesis, yes, if both kinds exist, stranger, of course they exist, but the hunting after lifeless things, having no small special name except some sort of diving and other small matters, may be omitted. The hunting after living things may be called animal hunting. Yes, I mean, yes, the hunting after uh, lifeless things. I mean, people do mining. What they mine for minerals. People mine for oil. This, but I guess there is no special name in as far as uh, well, I mean, I guess it's mining. This would be the name for lifeless things that are, I don't know, hunted. um, Stranger. And animal hunting may be truly said to have two divisions: land animal hunting, which has many kinds and names, and water animal hunting, or the hunting after animals who swim. Theotetus true. Stranger, and of swimming animals, one class lives on the wing and the other in the water. Theotetus certainly. Stranger, fowling is the general term under which the hunting of all birds is included. Theotetus true. Stranger, the hunting of animals who live in the water has the general name of fishing. Theotetus, yes. Stranger, and this sort of hunting may be further divided into two principal kinds. Theotetus, what are they? Stranger, there is one kind which takes them in nets, another which takes them by a blow. Theotetus, do you mean What do you mean, and how do you distinguish them? I want to go back to when the stranger says, so the arts for productive and creative, well, the different examples he gave for creative or productive arts or agriculture and tending to mortal, tending to creatures and building vessels and imitation, uh, which, yeah, I mean, they're also arts. And you could say building a ship or doing imitation maybe more creative or use more creativity than hunting or trading, perhaps. I mean, one would have to be a specialist in all of these areas to really be able to give a good opinion on them. But I suppose I think imitation would be like acting, agriculture, and I guess this would be farming, tending to creatures is very similar to hunting, and even, well, I don't know how. I mean, agriculture and trade is very closely related. I mean, I don't know how similar they are, but it's just he, although he wants to make the distinction between these things, ultimately there's the distinction is somewhat arbitrary. It's something that, well, not arbitrary. Maybe it's something more artificial. It's not a necessary distinction. I mean, one could put all these things into one basket. I mean, the stranger is trying to make a kind of tree like diagram to kind of give good arguments for what he believes the sophist is, and and as far as not getting hung up on, or at least noticing or acknowledging that fact that the things he's mentioning could be placed into into all the same baskets, it's good to just acknowledge the fact, even though and kind of move on instead of harping on it. But it may prove to be a major issue later on. We'll see.